Hello and welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shuja and these are the headlines. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says Gwadar is going to become the focal point of the country. He was addressing a ceremony in the port city to launch several mega projects under the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. He said that Pakistan will benefit from the rapidly growing economy of China. The Afghan government is planning a counter-offensive in the country's north after losing ground to the Taliban. Speaking in Moscow, National Security Advisor Hamdullah Mohib said Kabul had not expected the takeover. The Taliban now control roughly a third of all 421 districts and district centers in Afghanistan. At least 21 migrants have drowned in a shipwreck off Tunisia while crossing the Mediterranean Sea from Libya to Italy. A security official said the Coast Guard recovered the bodies off the port of Safax. The latest disaster comes only 2 days after 43 migrants drowned in the same region. Brazil has reported 830 COVID-19 deaths and more than 27,000 cases in the last 24 hours. In Pakistan, 19 people lost their lives to the virus, while more than 1,300 tested positive overnight. Globally, the virus has claimed 3.9 million lives and infected more than 183 million people so far. For more news in detail, stay tuned. We'll be back after a short break. Welcome back. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says Gwadar is going to become the focal point of the country. He was addressing a ceremony in the port city to launch several mega projects under the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Khan added that Pakistan will benefit from China's rapidly growing economy. He thanked the government of China for launching water and solar projects in Balochistan, particularly in Gwadar. Khan said Gwadar will connect with Central Asia, while the contracts have been signed with Tajikistan and Uzbekistan in this regard. Discussing Afghanistan, he cautioned that a civil war in the country would have negative consequences for the entire region. The Afghan government is planning a counter-offensive in the country's north after losing ground to the Taliban. Speaking in Moscow, National Security Advisor Hamdullah Mohib said Kabul had not expected the takeover. More in this report.
As the U.S. troops withdraw from Afghanistan and the government forces lose one district after another, the Pentagon fears a complete military takeover of the country by the Taliban. In an interview, U.S. Army General Scott Miller termed the rapid loss of terrain as concerning. But a Taliban spokesperson, Sohail Shaheen, said the group is not planning to seize Kabul militarily. He, however, warned that no foreign forces, including contractors, should remain after the withdrawal is complete. The Taliban now control roughly a third of all 421 districts and district centers in Afghanistan. The Taliban claim to have captured nearly 20 more districts in 6 provinces in the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, the Afghan Defense Ministry says it has killed more than 330 fighters in 8 provinces in the past 24 hours. The warring sides have not commented on each other's claims.
At least 21 migrants have drowned in a shipwreck off Tunisia while crossing the Mediterranean Sea from Libya to Italy. The latest disaster comes only 2 days after 43 migrants drowned in the region. The security officials said the Coast Guard recovered the bodies off the port of Safax. Authorities said they have thwarted 10 immigration operations in the last few days and rescued over 150 migrants. Thousands of people have made the dangerous Mediterranean crossing in recent years, many of them fleeing conflict and poverty in Africa. In the Philippines, the death toll from a military plane crash on Jolo Island in the Sulu province has risen to 50. In a statement, the Army chief said all 96 passengers have been accounted for. The Philippines Department of National Defense said 3 civilians on the ground were also killed, with 4 others injured. The C-130 military plane was transporting troops from Cagayan de Oro in Medoana. It missed the runway on the island of Jolo while landing. Officials said most of the passengers on board were young soldiers on their first deployment. Ukraine says the recent naval exercises with the United States have enhanced Kiev's ability to resist Russian aggression. The Sea Breeze 2021 drills in the Black Sea follow a spike in tensions between NATO and Moscow. President Volodymyr Zelensky visited the U.S. missile destroyer USS Ross in the port of Odessa. He congratulated the United States on its Independence Day celebrations. Zelensky said the Ukrainian anti-ship missile Neptune was officially adopted by the country's armed forces.
Sea Breeze 2021 demonstrates our unity in confronting military threats that are intensifying in the Black Sea region due to its militarization and the aggressive actions of the Russian Federation. This shows everyone our steadfastness in upholding the norms and principles of international law.
Russia says it has not had any contact from the United States over a ransomware attack carried out by Russian-speaking hackers. The attack was executed on Friday and has affected at least 200 companies in the United States. The hackers demanded $70 million in Bitcoin to restore the data. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said Washington has not shared any data regarding the attack. At last month's summit in Geneva, U.S. President Joe Biden and his Russian counterpart agreed to begin consultations on cybersecurity. The Pentagon has denied reports of rocket attacks on a U.S. military base in Syria. The base is located near the Al-Omar oil field in the eastern countryside of Deir ez-Zor. In a tweet, a coalition spokesperson, Colonel Wayne Morodo, denied the report, saying that they were not true. According to media reports, at least 2 rockets were launched in the direction of the U.S. military base. Syria state agency SANA also reported that the facility was hit with 2 rockets. The alleged rocket attack came 6 days after a similar attack on U.S. troops in eastern Syria. 7 Palestinians have been injured during clashes in northern Hebron in the occupied West Bank. Witnesses say hundreds of settlers backed by the Israeli forces stormed the Nabi Yunus Mosque. They fired metal bullets and suffocated dozens of civilians. Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, Israeli settlers also stormed the Al-Aqsa compound. A Palestinian was arrested from outside the mosque. The occupation forces also arrested a young man from his home in the Ras al-Mod neighborhood. Brazil has reported 830 COVID-19 deaths and more than 27,000 cases in the last 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed 3.9 million lives and infected more than 183 million people so far. More in this report.
The fight against COVID-19 faces major setbacks as countries impose fresh restrictions due to the spread of the Delta variant. In the far-off Pacific island nation of Fiji, the largest hospital is now crammed with coronavirus patients. In Australia, New South Wales says the next 2 days will be critical in deciding on a 2-week lockdown. While on the nation's 245th birthday, U.S. President Joe Biden called on Americans to get vaccinated.
We all know powerful variants have emerged, like the Delta variant. But the best defense against these variants is to get vaccinated. My fellow Americans, it's the most patriotic thing you can do. So please, if you haven't gotten vaccinated, do it. Do it now.
Iran, too, has announced new restrictions in major cities as the highly contagious Indian strain spurs fears of another surge. Meanwhile, the UK is set to announce the lifting of most curbs, even as experts warn that doing so will be like building new variant factories. Authorities have also announced that mask wearing in England will become a matter of personal choice.
The data that we're seeing that the Prime Minister is reviewing at the moment ahead of his decision point on the roadmap looks very positive. It does seem as if we can now move forward and move to a much more permissive regime where we move away from many of those restrictions that have been so difficult for us and, as you say, learn to live with the virus.
Indonesia is now ground zero for COVID-19 in the Southeast Asia. The hospitalization rate for patients has surpassed 90% in the capital Jakarta, while tents have been set up outside hospitals.
Pakistan has reported 19 more deaths due to coronavirus in the past 24 hours. The death toll has risen to 22,427. The health ministry says more than 1,300 people have tested positive for the virus overnight. Nationwide, the caseload has surpassed 963,000. Officials say more than 900,000 people have recovered so far. Meanwhile, the country has administered nearly 173 million vaccine doses. Official data shows that more than 3.3 million people are fully vaccinated. Pakistan is observing the 22nd anniversary of the martyrdom of war hero Captain Colonel Sher Khan. The wreath-laying ceremony was held in his hometown of Sawabi in northern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. In a tweet, the Army's media wing said Sher Khan defended the country against all odds. The military said that the war hero displayed utmost valor, commitment, and allegiance to Pakistan. Captain Colonel Sher Khan joined the Pakistan Army in 1992. During the Kargil conflict on the line of control in 1999, he inflicted heavy losses on the Indian forces. He is one of the 11 recipients of the nation's highest military award, Nishan-e-Haider. In Japan, 3 people have been killed, with 80 others still missing after landslides tore through Atami Resort, southwest of Tokyo. Around 1,500 rescuers are combing through the crumbled houses and buried roads for survivors. A government spokesperson has warned that more rain is in the forecast, raising the possibility of landslides. The local government has decided to close 11 schools as warnings against heavy rain and mudslide remain in place. Talking to the media, Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga said all efforts are being made to rescue people. Suga added that the people, firefighters, and members of the military are aiding the search. In Thailand, a rescue worker has died battling fire after an explosion at a factory on the outskirts of Bangkok. Officials said 70 houses have been damaged, with thousands of people evacuated. They said 29 others have been injured, and the fire is still being fought 9 hours after the explosion. The cause of the blast is yet to be determined. China has opened a cybersecurity probe into 3 technology companies recently listed in the United States. This comes a day after Beijing ordered the removal of ride-sharing giant Didi from app stores. The targeted firms are online recruiter, Zpin.com, and truck-sharing apps, Hosheng and Yunamanaman. The Cyberspace Administration of China says it aims to prevent data security risks and safeguard national security. It directed the 3 businesses to halt newer user registrations during the review. Chinese regulators have also recently tightened scrutiny of internet companies for anti-competitive practices. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Egypt, the Suez Canal Authority says that it has agreed on a settlement with the owners of a container ship that blocked the waterway in March. The authority has held that the giant ship and its crew since it was dislodged on the 29th of March. The Ever Given has become stuck in a high wind and remained wedged across the canal for 6 days, disrupting global trade. The Canal Authority had demanded $916 million in compensation to cover salvage efforts and lost revenue. It later lowered the request to $550 million. The owner of the ship had disputed the claim as well as its detention under the Egyptian court order. The Vatican says Pope Francis is in a good condition following surgery to remove a part of his colon. This is the first time the Vatican has disclosed the specific nature of the surgery. A Vatican spokesperson revealed that the pontiff was suffering from symptomatic diverticular stenosis of the colon. In addition to causing pain, the condition can lead to inflammation and difficulty in bowel movement. The 84-year-old is expected to stay in the hospital for 7 days. In the U.S. state of Florida, the standing part of Miami's Champlain Towers has been demolished ahead of a storm as hopes fade for survivors. The death toll from the collapse stands at 24, while 121 people are still missing. Explosives were used to bring down the remaining unstable section of the apartment block. It was demolished so efforts could be immediately resuming after. Miami-Dade County Mayor Daniela Levine Cava says residents of nearby buildings were asked to remain indoors. Nobody has been pulled alive from the debris since the building collapsed on the 24th of June. Colombian authorities have demolished a government building in Bogota in a controlled explosion. It served as the headquarters of the Ministry of Defense for 59 years. An explosive was embedded in nearly 1,900 performatures located in 533 columns of the structure. The building was destroyed due to reports of structural weaknesses. There were concerns that it could be compromised during an earthquake. Authorities will build a new state-of-the-art defense building in its place. Cuba has evacuated 180,000 people as tropical storm ELSA churns towards the country's east. It is moving along Cuba's southern coast and is expected to make landfall today. The National Hurricane Center said the storm registered maximum sustained winds of 95 kilometers per hour. It noted ELSA will bring 5 to 10 inches of rain to Cuba, with some parts receiving up to 15 inches. The storm's next target is Florida, where U.S. President Joe Biden has declared a state of emergency. At least 3 deaths in the Caribbean have been attributed to the storm so far. Canada says its military will provide air support to battle a series of massive wildfires in British Columbia. Officials say 176 fires are active across the province, including 76 that were reported over the past 3 days. The federal government says that the Army will help transport personnel, supplies, and equipment to the province. In a statement, Canada's Minister of Public Safety said the military's support will be available until the 19th of July. Bill Blair assured that the government is working to keep the British Columbians safe. Meanwhile, hundreds of people have been evacuated from their homes amid raging wildfires. British Columbia has been recovering from an unprecedented heat wave, which has also caused 719 deaths. The top U.S. diplomat in Australia has urged the country to adopt more ambitious climate goals. In a message, Chargé d'Affaires Mike Goldman said Washington and Canberra share an obligation to protect the planet. Goldman noted that Australia and the United States have close security and economic ties, but more needs to be done. The two countries, he said, have much to gain by partnering to develop new green technologies. Canberra is facing growing international pressure to formally commit to the net zero emissions by 2050. It is also being pushed to lift its medium-term targets to align with the Paris Climate Accord. New Zealand has experienced its hottest June since records began more than 110 years ago. According to official climate data, the average temperature for June was 2 degrees centigrade higher than usual. It was warmer despite a polar blast that swept up the country last week. The country's highest temperature recorded was the Hastings and Auckland, both reaching 22 centigrade on different days. Climate scientists say in the past 100 years, New Zealand's temperature has increased by 1 degree Celsius. If warmer winter months persist in the years to come, that could spell trouble for the country's ski fields and agriculture sector. China has successfully launched a new meteorological satellite into its planned orbit. Fengyun 3E will be the world's first meteorological satellite for civil service in a dawn-dusk orbit. The Long March 4C rocket blasted from the Yuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwest China. The satellite is equipped with 11 remote sensing devices and has a lifespan of 8 years. It will obtain information about atmospheric temperatures, humidity, and other meteorological parameters. The launch marks the 377th mission of the Long March rocket series. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos will step down as CEO of the company today to become executive chairman. The head of the company's lucrative cloud computing division, Andy Jassy, will replace him. The transition settles a long-running question about who would substitute Bezos at the company's helm. It is also a sign of the company's transformation from a web retailer to an internet conglomerate. Bezos started the firm as an internet bookseller 27 years ago and is ending his role as CEO on a high note. Last week, Amazon reported quarterly sales above $100 billion for the first time. As part of 4th of July celebrations in the United States, contestants faced down and faced off in a key lime pie eating competition in Florida. More in this report. Wearing safety goggles and hands clasped behind their backs, 25 contestants plunged face down into 9-inch pies and participated in the World Key Lime Pie Eating Championship in Florida to mark the U.S. Independence Day. Seattle resident Nicholas Laura won the contest, finishing an entire pie in 2 minutes and 13.5 seconds.
You know, in New York, they got the hot dog contest, and that's great and all. But in Key West, we got the real contest. It's a speed eating round, face first, all one and done, key lime pie. I think that's where it's at.
Key lime pie is made with condensed milk, egg yolks, key lime juice, and a graham cracker crust. Because it is often served with layers of whipped cream on top, contestants have the option to wear goggles. They must, however, eat the pie without using their hands. French swimmer and Paris mayor's son Arthur Germain is swimming down the entire length of River Seine. More in this report.
Germain set himself the goal of swimming down the 775-kilometer-long river, from its source in the Côte d'Or department to its mouth near Le Havre. The 20-year-old set out from Paris on Sunday morning for the 29th day of his marathon swim. He still faces another 24 days in the river before reaching the sea. Germain aims to awareness about river pollution and campaign for their cleanup. He has also collected about 1,200 water samples along his trip to identify polluted areas. Every day, he swims 15 kilometers while pulling 90 kilograms of food and equipment on a kayak tied behind him. Germain is also the youngest French person who swam the English Channel at the age of 16 in 2018.
European stocks are trading mixed as investors stay cautious ahead of a crunch meeting of the OPEC Plus oil-producing alliance. Frankfurt's DAX has lost marginally, while the CAC 40 in Paris also slipped fractionally. London's FTSE and Italy's FTSE MIB have edged above the flat line. The Pan-European Stock 600 is trading flat. Earlier, Asian markets traded mixed, with Japan's Nikkei 225 and Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index shedding. Oil prices have edged up ahead of an important meeting of the Alliance of Oil-Producing Nations, the OPEC Plus. Investors and traders are awaiting a crucial decision in extending oil production cuts beyond April 2022. Brent crude has gained 15 cents or 0.02% after slipping 1% last week. U.S. oil has gained 12% or 0.5%, having risen 1.5% last week. OPEC Plus ministers have resumed talks after a rare public stalemate among Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Last week, the ministers failed to reach a deal on output of oil policy after 2 days of talks. It's now time to take a look at the weather updates from around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at Indus.News.